Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. It's the holy month of Ramadan, observed by Muslims around the world. Joining me in studio to talk about it, Faizan Syed, Executive Director of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Mojda Siddiqui is a local fitness trainer, and Nisar Syed Power is a Project Downtown volunteer. Thank you all so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Does one say Happy Ramadan? Is that the appropriate thing to say? Well, in that case, Happy Ramadan to you all.
Thank you.
All righty. Let me begin with you, Mojda, about what this holiday means to you, this time period means to you.
I love Ramadan. It's the best time of the year. It's the time where I get to do what I love most, which is introspection. I like to just zoom into myself, get to know myself better, disconnect digitally from the cyber world and connect with my inner world, which I don't get to do much, being a busy millennial, that is.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, well, you're right in the middle of this whole period right now, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Nisar,
Yes.
how about you? What does this holiday mean to you?
Well, it's
That's all right.
sorry, something that I look forward to also all year long. It gives me a chance to refocus and kind of reset. It gives me time to reflect on what I can do better, and I try to continue that on for the rest of the year and set some goals and objectives, kind of learn more.
I see. All right. Faizan, same to you.
Well, just to add to what everybody said, Ramadan is a month in which 1 out of every 5 people in the world, because there's about 1.84 billion Muslims in the world, give up eating and drinking from sunrise to sunset in order to fundamentally gain a spiritual awareness of God, of Allah in the Arabic language. And by fasting and staying away from food and drink, it gives you an opportunity to reflect on your own strengths and your own weaknesses. During this month, you'll find Muslims try to be better people. They try to donate. They try to give more charity. They try to pray more. They try to go to the masjid more. And it's also a month of community. Every night in Ramadan, all the Islamic centers in St. Louis and across the world will hold the iftar dinner as a communal event. So people within the community, even people of other faiths, are welcome to come in and participate in that breaking the fast meal. And one of the main things about Ramadan is an opportunity for us, everyday folks, to feel what many impoverished people around the world is a reality of their life, which is for many people, food insecurity is a daily norm. And not knowing where your next meal is going to come from or actually feeling hungry is part of who they are. And when Muslims we fast, we get to experience what these people experience. And through that, gain a better appreciation for the impoverished in the world. And also, there's many charity opportunities to then help those people who are impoverished as well.
What is the origin of the holiday?
Ramadan began during the time of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him. It was a month in which the Quran specifically stated to fast during those 30 days in Ramadan. And during that time, of course, they lived in a very different time than we do. We get to experience the luxury of air conditioning and working indoors. But at that time, of course, they had a much harder time fasting in Ramadan. One of the unique things about Ramadan, though, I remember when I was a kid and I first started fasting, believe it or not, Ramadan was in the winter time. Right now it's in May and it's the heat of this month. And what's interesting is that Ramadan goes back 10 days every year because based on the lunar calendar. So now as an adult, fasting is about 18 hours a day. But when I was a kid, you could break your fast like around 4:30, 5 o'clock. So it's not the best for me, but for my children, it's going to be something very easy once they start fasting.
What about very young children, toddlers? Are they subject to the fasting as well?
So children Islamically start fasting once they hit the age of puberty, and that's when it becomes an obligation. But what's interesting is that so many young kids, they want to be like their parents, they want to be like their older brothers and sisters, they want to be like everybody in the family, and they start fasting at very young ages. I remember myself, I started fasting at the age of 7 at home. And again, my parents didn't tell me to fast, they didn't force me to fast. They would just wake up early, and I didn't want to be left out, so I joined in as well. In fact, Nisar, she's got kids, and they're fasting right now.
I have 2, one a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, and both of them I've told them not obligatory to fast, but they want to. And even my 5-year-old will do half-day fasts. And
Sorry, how difficult is it to fast?
we were
on
just
this
talking
basis?
about that back there. The not eating and drinking part doesn't really bother me too much. I do miss my coffee. But it is, I think my biggest test is patience, especially being hungry and being tired because you have such broken sleep. Dealing with my kids and just having that patience. So I have to work extra hard at that.
Life goes on, but
Right,
it goes
exactly,
on an
'cause I
empty
work
stomach.
and yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Marcia, how about you? How do you deal with the fasting part of it?
I enjoy it. I learned something that helped me a long time ago, and that's someone gave me this tip, and that's when you get hungry or when you get thirsty, rub your stomach and just look up or just look in and say, Lord, this is for you. Make it easy for me. So it's been 8 days now. So today's the 8th day for some of us, 9 day for others, depending on when you started. And so far it's been a breeze. Like, I'm really, really grateful. I think it's all mental, and I've mentally prepared myself. Hey, we're going to go without food. We're going to go without water. So maximize the 8 hours where you can eat. So that's what I do. I try to eat super healthy, like fruits and veggies and tons of water, tons of dates, and try to stay away from all salty and fried foods because that'll drain me throughout the day. So I think the not eating part, not difficult at all, actually. And just the water part, I do get thirsty, but I try to conserve my energy, and that helps a lot.
Well, what about when you break the fast? I'm sure that's a pleasant moment for everybody.
Yeah, that's definitely the most rewarding point, I think. When it does get difficult, you tell yourself it's okay, Lord, accept this from me. And then in that moment, you feel a little strength, and it gets you through it. When you sit down and you look at your meal and you put your hands up and you pray for forgiveness and you pray for acceptance, and you break your fast, all of a sudden it's over.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're
It's
not
like-
as hungry as you thought you were either.
Nassar, I think a lot of emphasis is put on the non-Muslim world, on the fasting part of this period, this holiday. But it's much more than that. I think Faison talked about the idea of doing things for other people. You're involved in that, aren't you?
I do. So one of the places I like to volunteer is with Project Downtown. And it's an organization that started back in 2013. Just a bunch of college students that decided that they wanted to do something to help the less fortunate. And they started feeding meals, preparing and feeding meals out in North County. At a destination there. And now they're part of a larger organization. Project Downtown St. Louis is part of Project Downtown National, and there's like over 20 chapters and across the United States. And every week we go out to the same neighborhood and prepare and feed the less fortunate out there, the impoverished neighborhood. Yeah,
that is the focus on the
that's the
people.
focus
who are
on the
less
people. Yeah,
fortunate.
on the people out there.
Faison, what's the origin of that part of the celebration?
Feeding others is one of the most rewarding experiences, being Muslim, and also as part of all Abrahamic tradition, really all faith traditions, to feed those and be kind to the stranger. And Ramadan's an opportunity where people can experience what it's like being food insecure, not having your next meal prepared. And if you can experience that and walk in those shoes, then you're more likely to then donate and support those people as well. Often we forget that even in our own city, we have thousands of families who are food insecure. And Ramadan is an opportunity where people like Project Downtown, the people that are feeding are fasting, so they can't eat. And then yet they're feeding other people, which I think is absolutely stunning, especially in the summertime when it gets so hot for all the volunteers.
You mentioned something that I think many people, if they knew it at all, tend to forget. And that is that three great religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all have their heritage in the Abrahamic, if you will, family.
Correct.
That's right.
And we should remember that.
Right.
We should remember
Yes.
that. And fasting is not something unique within the Muslims. In fact, part of the way that God describes fasting is that fasting was prescribed unto you as it was prescribed unto nations before you. So this is a tradition that the Muslim community also does with other Abrahamic traditions as well. And it's fundamentally grounded in an opportunity for you to stop feeding your body for a little bit, but start feeding and nourishing your soul. So a lot of what Ramadan is, especially for Muslims, is a way to reconnect with the divine, especially because, Don, you and I and everybody here, we have our daily routines. Every day we wake up, go to work, do the same thing every day. But Ramadan is described as the great disturber, that it goes in and it disrupts your schedule, it disrupts your flow for that whole month, it disrupts your sleep schedule. And because of that, you are now living in the here and now and the moment. And it's something that really inspires many Muslims, and they really look forward to the month. And when it's here, they love it. And when it's gone, they miss it.
Yeah.
Nisar, why a month? Why not 2 weeks? Why not 6 weeks?
I was actually just going to say that I was listening to a lecture recently, and they were talked about Ramadan being like a training session. And it is. It's basically a training session to try to put into good habits so then you can carry on for the rest of the year. Yeah. The work that we do with all the charity work that we do, it's not just because of empathy or pity. It's a duty. It's a part of our faith. And because no matter what wealth we have, it doesn't really belong to us. It is God's wealth, and we are caretakers. And so it's our responsibility to take care of the people in our community. Those are the kind of things that I like to instill in my children. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You can live in the biggest house or the littlest house. You have to make sure that you take care of others.
Other things are more important.
More important.
Majda, my understanding is that the last 10 days of this month-long period are the holiest of these days. Why is that?
So we believe that the beautiful Quran, the book, one of the books that we uphold as most holy of the four that we believe were revelated by our Lord. The Quran was revelated in the last 10 days. We don't know exactly when, and I think that's part of the excitement is not knowing when. That way you can really dedicate yourself and give in your all and stay up as late as you can and wake up as early as you can so you can connect with Lord and pray to Him and ask Him for forgiveness. So it is the revelation of the Quran that makes it most important in the last 10 days.
To add on to what Majda said, one of the things that a lot of people of other faiths may not know about Ramadan is that in Ramadan there's also a special night prayer that happens during that month called the Tarawih. So typically the night prayer is at like 10 o'clock now, and then the Tarawih prayer, they typically try to recite the whole Quran during those every night in Ramadan, and that usually ends around 11:30. So Muslims like myself will stay up until about 11:30 every night. We go to sleep, and then we wake up around 3:30 in the morning because then we have to do the morning meal, and then go back to sleep, and then wake up at 6:30 or 7 to then go to work. So this is one of the unique rituals is that it also disrupts the sleep that the community has.
Is it very common for people of your faith to memorize the Quran?
It's very common, and one thing that's unique about the Quran, and I think Nisar is going to speak about that in a moment, is that part of our tradition is to memorize the whole Quran. This is called the Hifz program or the Hafid, and the one who memorizes becomes a Hafid or a Hafidah if they're a female. And it's part of our tradition to preserve the Quran. So even, for example, if a person of another faith came into the Islamic Center and they witnessed the prayer, when the Imam is leading the prayer and he's reciting the Quran, if he makes a mistake, immediately everybody behind him corrects him, right? And sometimes it becomes annoying because so many people are correcting the guy. So then he hears it and he does it. And in fact, in St. Louis, we have a program to teach native-born Americans, young kids who were born in America, grew up in America, watch YouTube and are millennials. And many of these are Hafiz students as young as 6, 7, 8 years old. And sometimes these children will actually lead adults in prayer because they know more Quran. In fact, Nisar's children are in that.
Yeah, my oldest son is in that program, Darul Quran Foundation. Wow. And he's been doing it for about a year and a half now. Yeah. He's an amazing kid. About a year and a half. He's about a little less than halfway through.
So
the memorization.
Basically a three-year project.
It is self-paced. So it just depends on how much he can accomplish.
Majda, have you been through that?
No, I haven't. I haven't. Well, the Quran for me personally is a lifelong learning experience. I like to focus on the tafsir, which means the explanation. Is that a good way to say that? Yeah, the explanation of the Quran. So because I'm not a native Arabic speaker, I was born in Afghanistan, so my first language is Farsi. So when I read the Quran, although I can read Arabic and I can write Arabic, I don't speak it, nor do I understand it. So I like to study what it's telling me to do, how it's telling me to live my life, and why is it saying what it is. And I find beauty in that. So I would love to memorize the Quran, and I try to memorize surahs here and there or verses here and there that resonate resonate with me. But for the most part, my personal focus is learning on its meaning.
How long is the Quran? How many pages?
I don't know how many pages. There's 114 surahs, 30 juz, I guess.
Yeah.
And I like to go off of what Mujda is saying. Yeah, basically that was my goal for this year. And so I have been going through multiple sources and kind of trying to understand the meaning of what I've been reading all my life. And it's amazing when you sit down and look at it, and there's just so much wealth of knowledge
much
in
wisdom.
there. Yeah, so much wisdom, so much guidance. It is the book of guidance is what it is. It's
Faison, is this holiday celebrated and observed the same way all over the world?
Well, it's celebrated the same way in that people will increase their prayer, they'll start fasting, and they'll do these other things. But the great thing about the Muslim community is that Muslims speak every language in the world, and they're from every country in the world. So Ramadan has own flavors. And I don't just mean that when they break the fast and the food that are eaten. In St. Louis, if you want to eat some very unique foods, go to a Muslim's house for Ramadan, and you'll have food from all around the world. What I mean also is that some of the traditions that are done and the way people practice it is unique, and we get a taste of that in America. One thing I wanted to add, though, is that one of the challenges that we have, specifically with care in Ramadan, is that because of the rising Islamophobia in the United States, because of political rhetoric that's out there, one of the trends we've seen is that we've seen an increase in anti-Muslim hate incidents, especially in Ramadan and especially in the last 10 nights. I remember one of the first cases I was involved in 2012 was when the Joplin Mosque fire happened, and that happened in the month of Ramadan during the last 10 nights as well. And one of the things that we encourage all Islamic centers, especially in the beginning of the month, is to be ready and to have security at your centers to be ready for the month. Believe it or not, now, when I was a kid, we had a debate, an argument at the Islamic Center here on whether we should lock the doors at night. Whether that was legal or not. And now we're way beyond that debate. Right now we have security guards, and it's a little sad to see that reality set in. But now with Islamophobia in America the way it is, it's important that community, especially Islamic centers, prepare for these night prayers, prepare for extra Muslims coming in by increasing their security, increasing their surveillance, and being ready for any type of attack.
A couple of things I want to bring to the fore here. Number one, if any of our listeners have questions about Ramadan that you'd like to ask, give us a call at 382-8255. That's 382-TALK. You can send us an email to talk@stlpublicradio.org or a tweet at STL on air. We're talking about Ramadan, the event each year that is celebrated by Muslims around the world. It is a high holy period for them, and that's what we're talking about with Faison Syed, the Executive Director of CARE St. Louis, Mojda Siddiqui, fitness trainer here in town, and Nisar Syed Power, a Project Downtown volunteer, because that's a big part of what this commemoration is all about. Nisar, let me come back to you. Do you feel safe, given what Faison has just said? In this community, in this time, do you feel safe?
kind of a mixed answer on that one. I do feel safe because I feel like God is protecting me. But blatantly out there in the public, I am a little bit more careful than I used to be, especially if I'm out in my headscarf. Just great example this morning. I was at the gas station actually, and this elderly gentleman was kind of looking at me kind of funny. I was kind of, taken back. I went to around the car, got in the driver's seat, and he walked up to me and he said, "Assalamu alaikum." And I kind of felt bad that I had questioned his motives. But I think people are, and I think people are making a great effort out there. But there are times that I don't feel safe.
Mojda, how about you?
I feel safe. I totally feel safe. I am not afraid. I don't have a fear. I'm grateful because I know this by studying the Quran, and it mentions time and time and time again that have no fear but the fear of the Lord. And if there is any danger, if the Lord does not allow danger to touch you, it cannot. And if the Lord allows danger to come to you, all of the world in its power and might cannot protect you from that danger. So I try to put my best foot forward every single day, and Ramadan is a great time to do that, to purify your intentions and your internal struggle, purify that within yourself, because as long as you're living a certain type of lifestyle and you know that your Lord is your sole protector, provider, nurturer, sustainer, and all those things, then you're good. You're good.
having gone through several, I won't say many, but several Ramadan periods, how has any of them changed you?
Oh my goodness, I change more during Ramadan, or I like to use the word grow or develop. More during Ramadan than the rest of the year. So when Ramadan kicks in, I prepare myself mentally for it a couple of weeks ahead of time, headstrong. But during the month, I try to dive in and try to just hold on to whatever I can, because this is the month that changed me. Actually, I started wearing the headscarf, the hijab, if you like to call it that, 4 years ago during this month, because I was inspired by reading the translation of the Quran, and there was this one verse that really resonated with me about protecting and preserving your beauty, and that was just one piece of how I changed during this beautiful month. But other than that, I grow and grow and grow.
I'm really looking at what not only what changes during the month, but what beyond the month. How have you changed?
So during this month, it's a recharge, right? It's a reflection. So I do a lot of writing and a lot of reading. So I write all those things down. And what do I want to change? What do I want to look at myself differently? How do I talk to people? Do I say thanks enough? Do I say I'm sorry enough? How do I communicate to my parents? So that's a really good example, is my relationship growth with my parents is just perfect during this month, because we believe as Muslims in the faith that during this month the gates of hell are closed, and all the major demons and Lucifer, Satan, whatever you want to call him, is locked and caged inside of hell, and the gates of heaven are open. Thus there's mercy pouring around us everywhere. So everyone is in a more peaceful state of mind and state of heart. So during this month, my relationship with my parents is at its best, and I take advantage of that, and I try to hold on to those habits and those behavior interactions and try to continue that same behavior throughout the year. It makes a huge difference.
Nisar, can you point to anything in particular that is a direct result of this time?
My volunteering. Many years ago, I think my oldest was like 4, so it's about 8 years ago. It was just me and my husband and my 4-year-old at the time, and we wanted to do something. So I just contacted a shelter that was downtown, and we took up some pizza, soda, and some cookies. And I don't know, we didn't spend very much, but it's fed about 100 people, and it just started with that. And then now I organize 3-course meals at local shelters, and it's I've just grown. It's just grown into something.
Faizan, how about you?
Well, Ramadan in general is a month where a lot of people try to change themselves. So even, for example, my family, my father used to smoke and they stopped smoking in Ramadan. I have other relatives who used to also have other bad habits of smoking, or in general just gossiping, or these other things that we do. And Ramadan, because it's a month, because it's a certain time, because you're hungry, and it's a constant reminder, it gives people that room they need in order to make themselves better folks. I have a brother-in-law right now who still does smoke, but he doesn't smoke while he's fasting, right? And he's trying to quit. And this is the month that he has the opportunity to actually get over that hump and hopefully get to where he wants to go.
Obviously, this has been around for a long, long time, but is there any changes going on now? Are there any changes going on now generationally? We talked about, Nisar, your children memorizing the Quran.
Right.
Is everybody following this kind of path, or is that changing? Who would like?
Well, just to add on to it, there's a few interesting ways that Ramadan is changing. So when I came here, I'm an immigrant. I'm first generation. My parents were born in Pakistan, and they came here as adults. So when we would do our break-in the fast meal, our morning meal, we would have these elaborate, lavish meals, pakoras, which are like deep-fried samosas, all these types of dishes. And now as an adult, now I have children. But the iftar meal, the break-in the fast meal, is basically fruits, water, dates, and very, very simple. And I think there's a generational gap. A lot of my friends who are now married, they're not having these same elaborate meals that their parents did. But yet every time I go to my parents' house, it's the same thing, right? Really elaborate meals. I gain a lot of weight there, and I lose weight at home. So it's we see a generational gift. Well, another thing that's interesting is in majority Muslim countries, the schedule flips on its head. So outside of Ramadan, you go to work 8 in the morning, come back at 5 or 6, whatever. In Ramadan, everything shifts. So businesses open around 5 at night, and they stay open till like 3 or 4 in the morning. And traffic is dead in the daytime, and it picks up at night. So it's just an interesting flip in the schedule.
Time is beginning to wind down. Do either of you ladies see any generational gap in all of this?
I think I agree with the diet part of it. Even when we were younger, my mom used to make like these festival type of like feasts at home with all this like food. She's a great cook. But now in my household, we try to eat super healthy and light. My mom makes smoothies, and my dad makes fresh juice from like actual like real oranges and lime, and try to just keep it healthy and light.
All right, Nisar?
I guess I'm keeping with the older traditions because I have the pakoras and samosas and all the fruit and dates.
Nice.
I like to create traditions with my kids, and so my focus is a little bit different, and so we enjoy that.
Time is winding down. We have a question from listener Matthew who writes, do you have a recommendation for an English translation of the Quran? Do you know of any that are...
There's a lot of good English translations of the Quran out there. One was recently done by, I think it was Yale University, and it's called The Holy Quran, and it's a translation that's done by that actual university, and I think that's a really good copy of it. There's also another book called The Guide to the Quran, which is also something very good, because not only a translation, but it's also a guide and gives narratives on it.
I do, yeah. So for iPhone users, there is this app. It's called Quran Explorer. I live by this app. I live in the app. It's amazing. It has the transliteration. It's got the English recitation in there. It's got multiple English recitations you can choose from. It even has like a little explanation section where it breaks down the meaning. So you can just dive in and get all the Quran explanation you need.
Yeah, I use Quran Explorer a lot too. I also use the Quran translation for middle schoolers. Easy to understand, easy to read, gives you a little background information, and kind of on my level, I guess.
Faison, we have 30 seconds left. You have an event that is coming up. Do you want to give us a quick...
Of course. So I would encourage everybody, all your listeners, to come. On May 31st, we're doing an event called Celebrating Women Interfaith Iftar, Breaking the Fast Meal. It's going to be a kebabish restaurant, and it's an event open to both men and women. But the speakers, the program is organized by women. All the speakers are ladies. And it's an opportunity for you to share in the Breaking the Fast Meal, listen to female Muslim artists and performers, and really get to come. So the event is out there. Go to our website, and you can register online.
We'll put the information on our website. Nice. People of all faiths invited?
People of all faiths are invited, and of course, both genders.
We've got to stop it right there. I want to thank you so much, Faison Syed, Executive Director of CARE, for being with us. Majda Siddiqui, thank you so much for being with us. And Majda, great to see you as well. Thank you. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.